permission. Hi everybody, as you've just been told, I am Chris. I'm from a company called Bootstrapping. Before that I used to run a product development company called Abstraction. We did digital product development, which when we started doing that about 3 years ago wasn't something you came across a lot. You had digital marketing agencies, digital app agencies, things like that, and what we sort of specialized in was more in the kind of IP creation and business development aspect of actually creating a product of value for a client rather than just a promotional tool. We adopted a catchphrase, for want of a better term, called soup to nuts and bolts. And it may sound a bit abstract, but essentially what it typified was the way we would work with very large data sets, very liquid data sets for our clients, and kind of break them down, put them into a structured format that was queryable, workable, and useful for actually garnering insight and then kind of leading on to strategic pieces. About 3 months ago, I set up a company on the back of that called Bootstrapping. We shut down our client services operation, took a small amount of investment, and actually decided to put our money where our mouth was and build a single product. We worked a lot with the music industry, specifically Universal Music and Warner and Sony. And Bootstrapping, in a very washed out looking slide, Bootstrapping is the natural extension for us. It's the bedrock for any musical product or innovation. It's essentially an API service which allows anybody to chuck a varying size catalog at us. It could be 100 tracks, 1,000 tracks, 6 million tracks in Universal's case. But just chuck those at us and get back a vast amount of data across multiple points. So on a track level, we can give you tempo, BPM, full beat tracking and beat pattern, notation, all sorts of useful things like that. And then we can also start to power discovery. So if you want to see all the artists we've got in our catalog that sound a bit like Phil Collins, or all the tracks we've got between 100 and 120 BPM that are tagged with rock, then we can give you those straight back. We can also deliver them with on-demand transcoding. So for someone on a 3G connection, we can immediately give you back, say, a low sample rate HEAAC V2 transcoding, which is perfect for a really cruddy connection. Or we can give you something like Dolby Atmos audio format for someone who's a real audiophile in their 7.1 channel home audio system. We work with some quite big names, as you might have mentioned. We've had investment from some of these, and we on the other side, we just work with their catalog. And we have a need for recruitment. Recruitment is a really horrible term. And on the way over, I was thinking, I really want to make recruitment a warm, fuzzy term. How am I going to do that? And the first thing that really jumped to mind was Comic Sans. And I thought, actually, recruitment's not really the right term for what we're doing. And it's almost, in the tech industry, it's not the right term at all. When you're building digital products, things that are going to have legacy and ongoing value in an organization, what you actually want to be building is a team building, not just recruiting, getting bums on a seat, but actually strategically bringing the right people to assure the future of your business. There's a number of reasons why that is imperative for a tech company. The first one is growth, being able to grow. In an agency context, that means being able to build more stuff, ship more stuff. For Abstraction, that was being able to churn more products out for our clients. For Bootstrapping, it means being able to process more tracks. At the moment, we're working with about 6 million tracks. In the next 3 years, we're going to need to move to a milestone of 20 million tracks and then 100 million tracks. And that needs a team to sustain it. It may not be as linear as an agency model, but we still need to grow our team as that catalog grows in size. Diversification. If you're looking to grow an agency, one way to do that is to increase the amount you ship, but it's also to change what you're shipping. So diversifying into new markets, be that mobile apps for a web agency, or becoming more of a sysadmin and hosting provider when you're just doing websites. Diversifying gives you new billables, potentially with less resource required, but you still need to be able to find the people to help you diversify. For Bootstrapping, diversification is kind of linked to that as well. We need to be able to get Bootstrapping onto new and emerging platforms, and we need to be able to find Objective-C developers or Swift developers or whatever is required to make sure that we can be hitting every platform possible and getting Bootstrapping everywhere. And then, of course, there's sustainability. People come and go. They also get pushed off cliffs into herds of wildebeest. And you need to be able to deal with that. So when your lead developer turns around and walks out, well, I'm not speaking from experience here, but when your lead developer turns around and walks out, you're not in a quandary and panic, but you're able to immediately identify the person you want to bring in to take over from them. The way we tended to recruit with abstraction, I think really typified the way a lot of small companies recruit or approach recruitment. It's what I kind of call lazy hiring, and it really doesn't lend itself to those 3 points. Because what you'll do is you'll just not really think about recruitment. You'll wait for people to perhaps get in touch with you, or you'll wait until you have an immediate need, and then you'll panic because you've got a project you've taken on and you can't deliver, so you'll go out and you'll panic hire someone. You may not get the right person because you're doing it in such a rush. And also, it puts a lot of stress on you and a lot of strain on the people within your team as well, because you're trying to onboard people so quickly, it puts a real strain on them to help bring that person up to speed. What we really want to be doing is proactive recruiting, identifying talent as it becomes available, opening communication channels immediately, and being able to do things very smoothly ahead of time, so we're never having to have that stressful scenario of rapidly bringing people in when we're already falling behind on projects and products. So we started to think about how we could become more proactive in our recruitment. We're not recruiters, we're developers. So the logical solution to us was to build a thing. Let's just build something. And it kind of reminded us of, the screenshots really aren't working that well, aren't they? It kind of reminded us of a project that we actually did for Roche Pharmaceuticals. It's another dirty word, actually, pharmaceuticals, a bit like recruitment. I'm not sure why we spend so much time dealing with this stuff. But Roche, whenever they bring a drug to market, have a requirement to test that drug. And they have to, that means getting people in that they can administer that drug to and measure the reaction, the response, the overall effect of it, and the effectiveness. And that presents a problem. It used to be that they could just pay people to do a trial, but they're not allowed to do that anymore. It's a really bad practice, and it's essentially illegal in a lot of territories. So they have to recruit people to do the trials. And the easiest way they can do that is to find people who are suffering from a particular illness or condition and not being treated for that effectively, which means identifying where there are people with that condition. And the project we undertook at Abstraction was essentially to map Google Trends data, Twitter data, and we even took about 6 billion rows of UK prescription data and generate essentially a heat map on a per condition basis of where, we worked on a drug level, so where a specific drug was being administered, and therefore there was a high odd that there's a wealth is not the right word, but a base of people that are suffering from that condition. So we thought about how we could apply that to developers. Who's suffering from the condition of being a developer? How can we find them? We needed to build a Cerebro. I don't know if anybody knows the X-Men, I'm guessing probably so. Xavier has a Cerebro which helps him find mutants. We wanted to help ourselves find developers. And the logical choice for that, the place where we're most likely to find developers, was GitHub. GitHub has a real wealth of data. You can see a profile of someone on GitHub. Yes. So Dan Cryer, who happens to lie about his location, he's actually from Bollington, not Manchester. Yeah, GitHub, it tells us about Dan that he's a PHP developer. He's released a number of repositories in PHP. A few of his repositories are incredibly popular. He's a very, very well-respected PHP developer. It tells us where he is. It gives us his email address, his Twitter profile, etc. So it's a real powerful resource. It's the soup that we want to turn into nuts and bolts. And that's what we decided to do. So we looked at what we were building for Beetroot, funnily enough. And we looked at what we were using. The Beetroot architecture is entirely asynchronous. We're Rails, as everybody should be. So we looked at essentially scraping the hell out of GitHub. We identified a number of locations. We kind of determined that most people who are going to come and work for us are going to want to commute within less than half an hour. So we picked every spot on the train line between Manchester and Stoke-on-Trent, which effectively is a half-hour train ride into our office.
So we used ResQ, which allowed us to deal with a massive set of data. I think we're talking about several million GitHub profiles, and just pull those in really nicely and put them into a Solr search index. I love Solr. Anybody who follows me on Twitter will know that I spend a lot of time sucking up to those guys, generally when I'm asking for advice on how to scale it. So we chucked it into Solr, and that lets us do some really nice things, not only searching by score, or searching and scoring on how good or how prolific someone is in a particular language or framework, but also geospatially saying, I want the people who are near to this postcode, but also use Ruby or are good at Ruby. So we chucked together a very simple UI, which is looking a bit washed out, but essentially you can take our office postcode and immediately see nearby people. More specifically, we were looking for JavaScript developers, as you do, so we could start to filter by JavaScript. And then going one step further, we decided that because all our tooling is in Ruby, we wanted to find Ruby and JavaScript developers. So we're immediately starting to drill down our local developers and finding people that we didn't know were around, which forms essentially a headhunting pipeline. If we wanted to find the best PHP and CSS developer in Huddersfield, you could look in this room, and you find James. There he is. What a dude. Or coming here, I decided to see what the Objective-C scene was like in Leeds. Put the postcode for the venue in. Hands up if you see your name. Is that anybody? No. So some of the things that we actually found from doing this were really quite interesting. Of the sample that we used with the locality to Macclesfield, there's actually 52 languages in use, which really startled me. There's one Cold Fusion developer, he's like the lone survivor. I think the dog is like the only Fortran developer left as well. So break down the top 5 languages. I was pretty stunned by this. JavaScript is almost twice the Ruby base, which is pretty cool. Ruby astonished us. One of the reasons we decided to do this was because we thought that we might be going down the wrong route with actually persisting with Ruby, and we might be better off switching to PHP. Northwest has a massive agency scene, probably proliferates a real glut of PHP developers. And actually what we found is there's 5 more Ruby developers than there is PHP. Python, sort of expected to be, there's a lot of people use it, don't know why. And Java is actually on a massive growth trend at the moment. Obviously, I'm going to guess that's because of Android. When we started to drill down into JavaScript, things started to get a bit less interesting, to be honest. We really thought there might be something in adopting JavaScript and bringing in this wealth of JS-capable developers to work on some sort of node platform. But actually, when you look at it, there's a shitload of really poor jQuery plugins on GitHub and a real lack of kind of serious test-driven node-style developers. That seems to be shifting at the moment now, though. And then we thought, what about looking at the top cities? What's the top city to recruit a Ruby developer in? The use case for this we were thinking is, if we were to start opening more offices, maybe we could actually decide where to open those offices based on what's around. So we decided to look for the top cities for Ruby. Manchester came out top, which is quite handy for us. Birmingham coming in second, and Leeds only comes in 4th after Sheffield, unfortunately, but it's very close. Liverpool, which I'm led to believe has a really strong game scene, has next to no one. But on that note, Unity is massive in Liverpool, and it was really interesting to actually look at the amount of repositories featuring Unity code bases and how that's grown over the past 6 months. Talk about a growth trend, look at that. And the same goes for Go. Go has become incredibly popular very quickly out of nowhere. So this is again a 6-month sample. And what's really interesting about that is by adopting this approach, we actually become reactive to the market, because we're not just going, we're going to use Ruby and we're going to stick to Ruby. We're actually keeping an eye on what's growing, what we can start to put into our architecture, and what we should be weighing up. And being able to identify a massive uptake like that is potentially a real opportunity.
So essentially what we got from building this tool and taking the afternoon out to build it was that we actually have a pipeline for recruitment, a headhunting pipeline, a tool that we can immediately put to use to help us find local developers and also to help us inform the company going forward. So if you're ever trying to solve a problem like this, I would recommend always going for an open data set, perform your own analysis on it, and really start to garner insight like that. And hopefully for your time investment, you'll come up with something really useful. Thank you.